take the field. Everybody waving their homer hankies as you look at the St. Louis lineup tonight. The speedy Vince Coleman to lead off, and Ozzie Smith and Tommy Herr batting third. Jim Lindemann, rookie first baseman, cleanup. Willie McGee, the veteran in center. Tony Pena does the catching. Game 7 hero, Jose Oquendo, is in right. The designated hitter is a rookie, Tom Pagnazzi, and Tom Lawless, he of the .080 average, bats ninth. Defensively, the Twins in the outfield, Dan Gladden, who came over from the Giants in the spring, Kirby Puckett and Tom Brunansky in the outfield. The infield, the G-men at third and short, Gaetti and Gagne with Lombardozzi at second, and Ken Herbeck, the native Minnesotan, at first. Tim Laudner does the catching. Frank Viola is on the mound, and one of the features we'll have for you during the series, Paul Molitor and Tony Gwynn have assessed the pitchers, and Molitor of the Milwaukee Brewers tells us about Frank Viola.
Frank Viola's development of a changeup over the past 2 years has taken him from being a good pitcher to a great pitcher. The one thing he has to be careful about there is he occasionally might tip his pitches, holding his fastball lower in the glove as opposed to his changeup or his breaking ball, which he holds higher up into the webbing. The Cardinals should have some success stealing third against him, but he does a very good job of holding runners on first base.
And there he is, and he's a man who has not lost a game in this building in almost 5 months, Frank Viola.
Well, along with a great Twins home record, which was 56-25 during the regular season, another 2 in the playoffs, Frank was 11-3 here, and this is a park where they score him a lot of runs. Paul Molitor told us about the fact that he has an excellent changeup, but he also throws about 95 miles, not 95, about 92 miles per hour, has a good curveball. And he said, the way I am going to have to get the St. Louis Cardinals out is basically not go 2-0, 3-1. If they get on, I'm not going to change my game. He does hold runners on very well at first base. Only 6 out of 15 have been able to steal on him this year. A very accomplished left-handed pitcher.
Now in postseason play, 6 umpires, and they're split in the World Series, 3 American, 3 national, as denoted on the right. Dave Phillips calls the balls and strikes. Lee Wire at first. Greg Kosk will be at second. John McSherry, national third. Ken Kaiser of the American down the line in left. Terry Tata down the line in right. And that, of course, means in a 7-game series, it would be Dave Phillips again back of the plate if we go the distance. So here we go. Game 1 of the 1987 World Series, and it begins with Vince Coleman, Ozzie Smith, and Tommy Herr. And the Cardinals with a lot of switch hitters, even though Terry Pendleton is hurt and not in the lineup tonight. They still have a total of 5 in the lineup, including the first 3. Frank Viola ready to get it underway. And a bunt. Viola fields, throws low, scoop in time. It's billed as Cardinal speed against Twin power, and right off the bat, it's Coleman trying to bunt his way on, but a good play by Viola and Herbeck.
A good play getting to the ball by Viola, but he threw a changeup to first base. And look at the scoop by Ken Herbeck, a vastly underrated fielding first baseman. Looked like he threw that ball with 3 fingers. A lot of times that ring finger gets involved in throwing, and anybody who's throwing to a base doesn't like that.
Ozzie Smith now takes a strike. Coleman, seated next to Danny Cox, will be the pitcher in game 2 tomorrow.
As a matter of fact, and talking about that ring finger, that's one of the things that makes Viola's straight change so effective. It's called the circle change, and it's thrown with the last 3 fingers of the left hand. That was it.
And he's ahead on Smith. 1-2. Another look now at Herbeck at first base, scooping it. Very close. And Lee Wire was the man right there to call it. 1 out, base is empty. Ozzie gone. Quickly 2 down. The crowd is already frenzied.
Another look at the changeup, which makes him such an effective pitcher. Out on his front foot, his left shoulder's already open. Again, he has to respect the 90-mile-per-hour fastball. Doesn't have a chance.
So 2 down, and now Tommy Herr, another switch hitter. There are his composite figures, but as a right-handed batter, Herr this year hit .297. As a lefty, only .242. Coleman and Smith were superior from the left side. Herr from the right side, which will benefit him against Viola. And they'll really miss Pendleton because Terry hit .337 right-handed. Strike. 0-1. And Smith, who has been in 2 World Series, had never had a K affixed to his name in the scorebook until now.
I think you'll talk to all hitters, and what they say is that a lot of times the pitcher, especially the first time around, whether it's the first game, the first at bat, have an advantage. There's a chance that Ozzie Smith has never seen Frank Viola. Doesn't really know what to look for. A scouting report will only tell you so much. Most hitters want to see the guy, especially maybe 1 or 2 times or 1 or 2 games.
That plus the fact the Cardinals are playing in a foreign ballpark, in a park where there are shadows, where the lighting has been a problem for some batters. Steered by Viola and a 1-2-3 inning. So the Cardinals have gone in order after a half. St. Louis nothing. Twins coming up. Cardinals gone in order, and thus the Twins come up in the bottom of the first inning with this lineup. Gladden leading off in left. Greg Gagne batting second. Then Kirby Puckett, Gary Gaetti, the American League Championship Series MVP, is the cleanup man. Don Baylor, who came over from the Red Sox in August, is the DH. Brunansky in right. Herbeck at first. Lombardozzi at second. Laudner catching. By the way, in the World Series, they will use the designated hitter here in Minnesota, not in St. Louis. In the AL Park, yes. In the NL Park, no. Coleman, McGee, Okendo in the outfield for the Cards. And then with Pendleton gone, Lawless, Smith, Herr, and Lindemann at first with Clark gone. Pena back of the plate. McGrain pitching. He's a rookie. And on our inside pitch, Tony Gwynn of the Padres, batting champ, talks about McGrain.
I had a lot of trouble hitting Joe McGrain this year. He throws a fastball, breaking ball, changeup. But his best pitch is a fastball. And he sinks it, he runs it in and out. But I think the Minnesota Twins will have an opportunity to steal some bases against Joe. Even though he's left-handed, he's real deliberate going to the plate.
Wynn's assessment as the Twins come up now with Gladden, Gagne, and Puckett in the bottom of the first inning at the Metrodome. McGrain, a rookie, and it's unusual for a rookie to start in a World Series game. The last time a rookie started a series opener was 1980. Bob Walk of the Phillies against Kansas City. One reason, of course, is a long and extended playoff series. If Whitey Herzog had his druthers and had they swept the Giants, it would have been Cox or Tudor starting, probably Cox.
And also the leg injury to Greg Matthews. Joe McGrain never really at a loss for words as far as cuteness. Said they must have held a lottery and they picked me. An interesting year though. Started out 5-0, then he went 2-7 and won his last 2 ball games. And he said the one thing he learned about pitching in the playoffs against the Giants was that instead of trying to pitch to the hitter's weakness, he has to go with his strength. And as Tony Gwynn said, that's the sinker away.
Gladden hits it down to Ozzie Smith. And the Wizard throws him out, so Gladden is out number 1 in the bottom of the first inning, and Greg Gagne will be the batter.
As both Tony and Paul told you, both pitchers are relying on the stuff that they talked about. The sinker from Joe McGrain after the changeup from Frank Viola, and Ozzie Smith. You'll see a lot of movement when he throws the ball. Greg Gagne, a totally different shortstop. When he goes to his right, he plants to throw. You rarely see Ozzie Smith plant and throw the ball.
Gagne at the plate, fouling it off. One thing Gagne said, I'm not competing with Ozzie Smith. I can learn from him over the next week.
Yeah. By planting, of course, I mean the right foot when you go in the hole. Ozzie is in a constant state of motion when he throws the ball. When he goes to his right, you'll see him almost circle the ball to his right. Not so with Gagne.
Outside, 1-1 on Gagne, who hit 2 home runs during the American League Championship Series. He's the kind of player who doesn't get a lot of headlines, but when you watch him play on an everyday basis, you begin to appreciate him more and more. 1-2.
Well, both of those home runs came on breaking balls, and no doubt the advanced scouts for the Cardinals saw that. So really what you have is McGrain's strength, which is the sinker, running it away and occasionally coming inside, against a guy that really is going to have better bat speed and is going to hit more longer balls on the slow curveball or something off speed.
1-2 pitch is inside.
You bring up an interesting point, Jim, because the way Gagne hits, he curls the bat. There's a lot of bat movement, and most of the time you see that bat curl with a lot of strong, big strong hitters. Mike Schmidt, Willie Stargell comes to mind. Now watch how he ends up. See, that bat's curled around his head. Can't catch up to the fastball.
And he becomes McGrain's first strikeout victim, and quickly 2 gone here in the first, and Puckett coming up. And we isolate now on Gagne.
See, when you curl the bat, you have farther to go with the bat, and that's why Jim said when you throw the changeup and the curveball, that actually speeds up the bat and allows a guy like Gagne to pull the ball.
Kirby Puckett now, as popular as any of the Twins. Great season. And you saw what he did offensively, defensively. He took several home runs away with catches over the fence. 1-0 with a 7-foot-high outfield fence in center here in Minnesota. Kirby able to reach over, a la Eric Davis, and take several home runs away. Chopper, and Puckett can run. Herr has to hurry and gets him. So the Twins are gone. Both teams out in order. No score after 1 in game 1. Here's something you'll see quite a bit. There's Gagne going back, facing a new pitcher and trying to impart some information to Gaetti.
It looks like Gagne is telling Gary that the ball was up, and a terrific play by Tommy Herr to come up with that in-between hop. There's a big difference between an in-between hop and a short hop. The in-between hop, that hop it's not true and it's not short. And for that reason, Tommy made a good play on that. However, a hop like that's easier to field on the artificial surface.
Jim Lindemann now is the batter. Lindemann not only spelling Jack Clark at first base, but spelling him in the cleanup spot. And there is Jack Clark in uniform, but ineligible, not one of the 24. Fly ball to center. Puckett got a very late start on it and can't make the catch. And Lindemann goes to second. And the only oddity there is that Puckett plays in this ballpark all the time. You would expect that to happen to maybe Willie McGee and not Kirby.
Well, one point that Tim and I were talking about, Al, before the game is the homer hankies. And here you see Puckett not able to get to it. Does get it with the bottom of his glove, which puts eventually Lindemann at second base. But you have all these guys behind home plate with white handkerchiefs. It's a much worse background than it has been all season. So even somebody familiar, and of course, as Marty Springstead, who's head of the American League umpires here, said, even an umpire, once you lose the ball, you're not going to find it. The roof is white and the background is white.
McGee now at the plate. Well, taking it a step further, the fans knowing that they could have the homer hankies out when the Cardinals were in the outfield and put them back in their pocket when it was Puckett out there.
Well, that's a problem with the World Series. A lot of times you have fans that haven't been to baseball games that often, so they're going to have to learn, especially if they're going to keep this home field advantage.
1-1 the count on Willie McGee, a switch hitter. Willie is a right-handed batter, 288, lefty 284, so he's pretty close to right down the middle.
Well, he's always been that type of hitter. Coming off knee surgery, started slow, didn't play till the middle of April. Go back to that MVP year he had when he hit 353. It was like 357 left-handed, 350, 48, I think, right-handed. So numbers aren't quite as high, and the power numbers are about the same too.
1-2. The Cardinals have to scratch and claw, as you know, for runs. Man at second and nobody out, and McGee, if nothing else, at least trying to move him over.
And again, talking about the circle change, Tim talked about it earlier. It's thrown the last 3 fingers. You kind of make like an OK sign. Well, what's so effective about a changeup, and especially when a guy like Viola throws as hard as he does, is that the arm motion looks like a fastball. You swing at the arm. If you slow down your arm, it doesn't matter what the speed of the ball is.
That's in the air and maybe deep enough to advance Lindemann. Puckett makes the catch. Lindemann tags. Puckett's throw comes through. Gagne not in time. elbow. Gaetti thought he had him. Kirby with a strong and an accurate arm, and Lindemann just does get there.
Well, this is why Bernansky and Dan Gladden lead the team in assists. People don't normally run on Kirby Puckett. You saw a perfect example there.
Yeah, he positioned himself very well, but this throw almost gets Lindemann. Look at the decoy set up by Gary Gaetti. It's like he's waiting at a bus stop, and he thought he might have tagged him high. And if he made contact there, I'll tell you, he could have been out, because you could clearly see that the foot hadn't gotten to third base.
John McSherry, the National League umpire, making the call. And so now the Twins play their infield back with a man at third and one out. But on this AstroTurf on the right side, halfway, which could be considered really in. There's a look. Gagne plays a deep in anyway as Pena swings and misses.
Well, you can afford to do that for two reasons. You're playing on the rug, and on an artificial surface, the ball's going to get to you quicker. And plus, you don't have good speed on third base in Jim Lindemann. So a sharply hit ball to Gagne, even though he's back, you may have a play at home.
And we saw him do that in the American League Championship Series. He plays a deep in and then begins to move in on occasion and can still throw him out at the plate. 1-1. Tony Pena had a tough year. He was hurt early, wound up hitting .214, came over from Pittsburgh, and at the end of the regular season started to wear glasses. He had a good NLCS.
Said it made all the difference in the world. Said he used to come into the locker room and couldn't see across the locker room. You can imagine trying to pick up a 90-mile-per-hour fastball.
You saw him in this situation getting the run in 65% of the time. The league average is 50%. So he normally does the job. 2-2.
Tony is a contact hitter, but he's also a bad ball hitter. And I think if Viola goes out of the strike zone, either 2-2 or 3-2, he's going to get him at least to go for a ball. Now, he may make contact on it, but it's going to be a pitch that Viola chooses as opposed to Pena.
Viola, 2-2. He'll keep Lindemann close at third, working from a stretch. 1 out. Pretty good rip with 2 strikes.
Well, he attempted to do exactly what Tim said, tried to run the fastball in on him and up in the strike zone, but when you're a bad ball hitter, you sometimes get the bat on the ball. So Viola makes the pitch he wants to, and again, Pena with the glasses is a much more competent hitter.
It's interesting that most bad ball hitters are forced by the very nature of the way they swing the bat to be contact hitters. They've got to make contact, otherwise you can't hit in the big leagues.
3-2 the count.
Tell you, their scouting report, I'm not much for World Series scouting reports, but the scouting report, I think, came into play with Tony Pena on those last 2 pitches. 2 high fastballs, neck high.
Lindemann at third, 1 down, and the 3-2 pitch is grounded to Gagne, and Gagne looked home and then opts to go to first. So he was in that deep in position where he had the option, but he felt the ball was just a bit too slowly hit to come home.
Well, breaking on contact, Lindemann doesn't have great speed, gets a good jump, and right there you see Gagne looking and takes the sure out. Again, I think that has a lot to do with their feeling that they have ability to score runs. You know, a lot of times you take that gamble, but Gagne chose not to do that.
So the Cardinals break on top 1-0, and Jose Oquendo hits a high fly ball down the line and left. Gladden and Gagne are both there, and Gladden has to backhand it in foul ground. But the Cardinals take the lead after 1.5, 1-0 St. Louis.
We talked earlier about the different styles in fielding the balls. Watch Gagne, and remember what we said, he has to plant to throw effectively. Had this been Ozzie Smith, I think he comes home with the ball because of his style of throwing. He's going toward home, and he'd take a chance, whereas Gagne, who's used to planting the right foot to make the throw, didn't opt to take the chance.
And it looked like had he thrown or been able to throw on the run, he had a real good shot to get him.
Close.
Gaetti starts the bottom of the second with a high fly ball to right field, and it's Oquendo looking up into the Teflon, making the catch for the out. So much made about the dome here, and it's funny because most people tend to think of the Astrodome, but in reality, this park is probably now more similar to Montreal, now that Montreal has the roof, than Houston.
Well, it is, except that this roof is white and the roof in Montreal is orange. And Billy Martin said, why don't they spend $100,000 and paint the roof? Maybe it's a pretty good winner's job, Tim. I don't know. But, I mean, this roof is white. It's more difficult to see the ball at night. And that's one of the objections. They think that the AstroTurf is not going to bother the Cardinals. They play on it most of the year in St. Louis.
This roof is white, but as you can see in that shot, and your color wasn't distorted, if it's aligned correctly on your set, it almost sends off an orange hue as Baylor hits it in the air to shallow right. Now Oquendo comes in a little gingerly for the moment and makes the play. 2 down.
Well, coupled with the fact, not only do you have the white roof, but you also have the white Homer hankies, and the Twins' colors are red, white, and blue. I mean, for the outfielders and infielders, you could have blue and red Homer hankies, maybe. As far as fielding a baseball, or change the color of the ball like Charlie Finley wanted to do 10 years ago.
Orange baseballs, right.
Yeah.
And it was Bob Uecker who said that couldn't be done because there weren't enough diseased horses. Brunansky takes low in the count, 1-0. 2 out, bases empty. Bottom of the second inning. Cardinals on top 1-0. 2-0 the count. Tom Kelly. What you see is what you get. Modest, unassuming, bright guy, and a real good guy. Painted in some quarters as dull and boring. Not really. 3-0, but he's a guy who loves to let his players take all of the glory and the limelight.
Says he tries to stay out of the way. Now Gaetti, you're talking about Gary Gaetti, says just the opposite. He involves everybody, plays most of his roster, maybe not in the playoffs in the World Series, every 3 or 4 days to keep the guys interested and ready. Of course, Tom Kelly says if he thinks that, I guess I fooled him.
3-0. Time was called. The plate umpire Dave Phillips was sending Ken Herbeck back to the on-deck circle. Herbeck was trying to cheat over closer to home plate to get a better look at McGrain. And that's ball 4. So now Ken comes out of the circle with Brunansky at first base and 2 down.
And the reason for that is you can tell the more you're behind home plate, the more you can tell about a pitcher, and the very fact that the Twins, unless they face McGrain at Orlando or St. Petersburg, the 2 towns in which the Twins and Cardinals train respectively, these hitters have not faced these pitchers, and you want every edge you can get.
So with the Cardinals ahead 1-0, the crowd waving the Homer hankies for Kent Herbeck. Strike. Kent would normally hit higher in the order, but lefty against lefty, and he's dropped down to 7.
It's 4th against right-handers, and you saw the 34 home runs. What changes is Joe McGrain on the mound. Of those 34 home runs, 28 against right-handers, only 6 against left-handers. So you take a lot of the power away when you throw a left-hander against Ken Herbeck.
1-1 the count. Herbeck, along with Brunansky, Gaetti, and Puckett, form what some call the Fabulous Four here. Guys who have been here a while and have been through some lean time. So it's particularly sweet for somebody like Herbeck in the World Series. 2-1.
Another interesting point to bring up, at least from a pitching perspective, is the fact is you're going to face 8 right-handers, and all of a sudden they throw 1 left-hander in there. So this is what Tony Gwynn talked about. Tough to hit, but if you do get on, one of his problems is he's tall, 6'6", long time to get rid of the ball. But also when he throws to first base, he telegraphs it. He stands upright. He kind of falls backwards instead of rolling his right shoulder and giving the base runner a deceptive look. And another problem is he throws the ball to first base a little bit too softly. So a lot of runners in the National League have just taken off and tried to beat the throw to second base.
Brunansky, who's really no slouch on the base paths, 11 steals this year. The runner at first, and the count is 3-2.
Well, the odds on running on a 2-2 count with 2 outs are really not good, because if the ball is a ball, then the count is 3-2, and the runner's going to be running anyway. Good play by Pena. Balls that are in the dirt, that are breaking balls, are easier balls to handle because all catchers anticipate the breaking ball in the dirt. That was a fastball, and usually when a catcher can come up with it, it's because of quick hands. They've got to be quicker to come up with the fastball, or at least stop it.
3-2, so Brunansky will be running. He's off, and the pitch to Hrbek is fouled away.
What a difference a 3-2 count makes versus trying to get the hitter out earlier in the count. As you said, Brunansky will be off, can score on a long single, most definitely with better than average speed, will score in the double. So a lot of times the difference between giving a run up with 2 outs sometimes is not where the ball is hit, it's the count.
3-2. Lindemann playing normal depth at first, and it's ball 4, and to the screen. Brunansky round second, but he'll hold there. So simply a walk. McGrain walking Brunansky and Hrbek with 2 down, and Steve Lombardozzi comes up.
Well, McGrain walked a little over 3 a ball game this year. You see Tony Pena missing that 3-2 pitch where he handled the 2-2 pitch. But McGrain, a very unusual pitcher. He tied for the National League lead in hit batsman. Tied with Kevin Gross of the Phillies. He hit 10. He committed 7 balks. So Joe, while he's got a fine young arm, doesn't do a lot of things to help himself. And with 2 out and nobody on, he's just walked 2 in a row.
And now he goes to work on Lombardozzi, whose average is not particularly high. He hit .238 during the regular season, but he has been a pretty tough hitter in the clutch. And against lefties in particular, as you can see.
Well, they platooned him a lot of the year with Al Newman. You can see why Newman has not hit very well left-handed, but he's played against a lot of right-handed pitchers. Lombardozzi tries to hit the ball back up the middle, worked with Walt Griniak, batting instructor with Boston from that area last winter. Brought his average up about 15 points this year.
Now Mike Rourke, the Cardinal pitching coach, goes to the mound after McGrain had set down the first 5. He's walked 2, and Rourke out there dealing in things mechanical.
And you often see that with young pitchers. They have not mastered the art of pitching yet. They're working with their God-given talents. And that is, God gave him a good arm. But as far as how to work a ball game and throwing strikes, 2 out, nobody on, he ends up walking Brunansky and Ken Hrbek. Hrbek, the only left-handed hitter in the lineup. When did you ever make that transition? I don't mean to say ever, but when
it took a lot of years. And what you try to, I think, as a pitching coach, is say, listen, you have a great arm, and one of the problems is that his arm is so live that the ball moves so much. Let the ball go in the middle of the plate. So what if it goes in or outside? At least you want to throw it for the middle instead of trying to make perfect pitches.
2-0. Pena snap throw, close play. The back runner Hrbek getting in.
Tell you, there are 2 catchers in the National League who throw from their knees. It makes an ex-catcher think that maybe I did something wrong during my career. I threw standing up and could throw it as hard as Pena and Benito Santiago with San Diego from their knees. I mean, Pena's been doing that for 10 years, too. It's amazing the velocity he gets on those throws from his knees.
2-0 on Lombardozzi. In there. Cards lead 1-0. Bottom of the 2nd inning. Getting a good view in the Metrodome where more than 54,000 look on. 2 on, 2 out, and 2-1 on Lombardozzi. 2-2. The amazing one, Whitey Herzog.
Look at Pena's target right in the middle. The ball just kind of sails in. Again, it's that live fastball. One will sink, one will sail. Sometimes it gets you in trouble, though. We've seen that with the 2 walks.
And now it's full, and that means the runners will be going. 3-2 with 2 down. We'll see Bernansky taking off from second. He acknowledges Rick Rennick, saying it's 3-2. And Ken Herbeck away to his lead at first. Whitey Herzog watching his team in the World Series for the 3rd time in the last 6 years.
There's no more helpless feeling, whether you're an infielder or a manager, than to stand out there and have your pitcher not to be able to throw the ball over the plate. Very frustrating. Makes defense a lot harder to play. You're on your heels instead of on your toes.
Popped up, and Lindemann says he'll take care of it. And he makes the catch in fair territory. Twins squander a threat. 1-0 Cards after 2. Will return after this word from your local station. Third inning at the Metrodome, and some advice from Rourke to McGrain.
Well, I've always felt like the pitching coach is like having a stepfather right in the dugout, and he's always there to help you. Patience. I know that the pitching coaches I had, Harry Burkeen, George Bamberger, Ray Miller, pitching staff would run through the wall for him because they're always there when you need them. And I'm sure what he's trying to tell him is just settle down, giving him some mechanical help, as you said, Al, and he got out of the inning. Just wants to really minimize the amount of pitches he throws.
Now Tom Pagnozzi, a rookie, fouls it away. Tom Pagnozzi, because of the absence of Terry Pendleton, they have Lawless playing third, and Lindemann, of course, spells Clark, and you need a designated hitter in the World Series. And so here is Pagnozzi, the number 3 catcher, grounding it to third. Fair ball, and Gaetti throws him out. 1 up and 1 down here in the 3rd inning. The G-man, they call him here in the Twin Cities.
They call him the Gold Glove man, too. Watch how he makes the play and kind of dodges the bag and pushes off that right foot to make the play. Good play by Gary Gaetti, who should win his 2nd Gold Glove this year.
It's amazing what kind of attention you'll get when you hit 30 home runs. He's always been an outstanding fielder, but all of a sudden you put those great offensive numbers up there, and people say not only can he hit, he can field, and he does both very well.
Now Tom Lawless takes a strike. Lawless spelling Pendleton, and there is Terry. Now Terry, of course, hurt, pulled a rib muscle on the bases against San Francisco the other night. What he can do is he can bat left-handed, period. He can't hit right-handed, and he can't play third base. So he will be the designated hitter tomorrow night. 1-2.
Hey, that was quite appropriate to go to Terry Pendleton, too, because a lot of people who follow the National League think he's the best fielding third baseman in the National League now. And it's the point that you took, Jim. Not until your offense catches up to your defense do you get the proper recognition.
And he has had his career year. Batting average went up to 296. His walks went up, home runs went up, RBIs went up, 96 RBIs. So to miss him, and it's I guess contrasted to 85 when Coleman was out of the lineup, is you see Viola blow it right by him. You're really missing one of the key players, not to mention the loss of Jack Clark.
Lawless, who was up only 25 times in the regular year and had 2 hits and then had 2 more hits in the playoffs, becomes strikeout victim number 2.
When I was talking to Tom Kelly, the manager of the Twins, I said, what's the difference between Frank Viola this year, 17-10 with a 2.90 ERA, last year I think won 18 games but an ERA of about 4.5 runs a game? He said it's the amount of pitches, and the contrast between Viola and McGrain tonight is that Viola used to get into the 5th or 6th inning, have 90 pitches. Now he minimizes his pitches, and McGrain has been throwing at least 25 pitches an inning so far.
0-1 on Coleman. For Vince Coleman, he is the fellow who was run over by the errant tarp at Busch Stadium in the playoffs in 1985. and that cost him a chance to play in the World Series. He had to sit and watch. 0-2.
Well, such an impact player. Raised his on-base percentage, stole 109 bases, only thrown out 22 times. So when he gets on first, it's almost a double. Maybe not against Viola because he has the good move, but just about every other pitcher.
Sometimes a triple because he has stolen second and third on numerous occasions this year. 1 ball, 2 strikes the count. Coleman grounded out in the first inning and strikes out here in the third. And it's 3 strikeouts for Viola. After 2.5, St. Louis 1, Minnesota nothing. The Metrodome in Minneapolis. Al Michaels along with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. Game 1 of the 1987 World Series. The Twins, as you can see here, Tim Laudner catching, 18 games over 500. With the backup catcher, Sal Butera, 12 games under 500, which is one reason when you look at Laudner's average for the year that he is in the lineup. 191, but he's a dangerous, if there's such a thing as a dangerous 191 hitter, you're looking at him. 16 homers. Strike.
No more dangerous than in the American League Championship Series. He got 1 hit against Detroit. It was a game-winning double in Game 2 against Jack Morris. And you know, that stat is not really a knock at Sal Butera because Sal was traded to the Twins, actually picked up after released from the Cincinnati Reds in the early part of June, and it points out that a pitching staff has to get used to pitching to 1 catcher, not 2 or 3. You rarely see pitching staffs successful, Jim, when they have to work with 2 or 3 catchers. So a manager would be less apt to platoon a catcher than other positions.
No balls, 2 strikes the count on Tim Laudner. Leading off in the bottom of the third, 1-2.
A lot of the hits that Laudner got in the playoffs were on breaking balls. He is very much like Ray Gagne, except more powerful. He is a better breaking hit. What I call a slider speed bat. In other words, if you throw him a slider that's usually about 8 or 9 miles per hour slower than a fastball, he catches up. But you can throw the fastball right by him. Inside part of the plate, outside. That's hence the 191 batting average.
Lee Wire says no swing, not even close. The way he shook his head. 2-2.
And it wasn't even close.
Yeah, Lee said, don't bother me. He had that kind of look on his face.
Well, except that's the catcher's duty. He wants to get every out he can, and Pena just said, I'll take a chance. Maybe he'll go for it. And he didn't.
2-2. Laudner leading off in the bottom of the third. Then Gladden and Gagne. Cardinals on top. 1-0. Full count. So McGrain making it tough on himself. After he had set down the first 5 tonight, he walked 2, went 2-0 on Lombardozzi and then got him. Now he's gone from 0-2 to 3-2 on Laudner. And he loses him.
A lot of pitching has to do with pace and rhythm, and that is the 4th 3-2 count in a row run by Joe McGrain. Even when he got Lombardozzi, it was a 3-2 count, the pop-up to end the inning.
Dan Gladden now. The Twins, and you're wondering maybe why they were able to do it in one season, go from next to last to first. Jeff Reardon, of course, a tremendous acquisition. Kelly, and also Dan Gladden, who grounds this one to third. Lawless goes down to her, and that's all they're going to get. Just the 4. So Gladden, who has good speed and led the team in steals this year with a total of 25, is at first base with 1 out.
Always an amazing game. You walk 3 out of 4 hitters, and the pitcher swings at the hitter swings at the first pitch. And a curveball, pretty good one at that. Lawless knows where he's going to get an out. Her knows there's no chance for a double play because Gladden can run well.
I'll tell you, there are 2 schools of thought to that particular theory, and I know what you're saying. If he's going to get Wild, or if he got Wild, let him stay Wild. The other side of the coin is that he is so wild that he's going to put a pitch with not as much on it right down the middle of the plate, and you got a chance to get on a cheap one. Unfortunately for Gladden, that wasn't a cheap one. Quality pitch.
Gagne now with Gladden held on by Lindemann.
As you said, Al, 25 stolen bases, 18 out of 21 successful steals against McGrain. Perfect opportunity for the Twins to run. Very aggressive in the American League playoffs. I think they shocked Detroit. Not that the catcher's Heath throws pretty well for Detroit. Mac Notes had trouble all year long, but they ran with reckless abandon. Anytime, hit home runs, did it all. Very aggressive ball club.
So Lee Wire there kind of peek around Gladden. Lee Wire, of course, a National League umpire. And remember, in 170 innings, McGrain was called for 7 balks. That's close. That is close.
Well, the rule there, and I think what you're talking about, is that you cannot take the right leg and bring it behind the pitching rubber. If you do, you have to come home plate. To come to home plate. So what Joe is trying to do is either get right on it, more or less like Steve Carlton, some of the guys with the good moves, and Lee Wire's over there to either call it or not. He has a great perspective.
The interesting thing, you mentioned Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton holds the National League record for balks in a season. And Steve had a similar move that Joe McGrain has. Steve had 11 in 1979, and that was Joe McGrain's hero when he was growing up. And Steve pitched for Minnesota this year.
They picked him up in August and may hook up with him again in spring training next year. And he almost throws a changeup away.
Well, that's what Mike Rock talked about. He said not only does he not have a great move, when he does throw the ball over, he doesn't throw it with enough on it.
Looked like he was caught in between there, Jim. It looked to me like he thought he had gone back too far with his right leg and threw it to first base and threw that changeup over there, almost knowing he was going to get caught.
I think that's what, 7 in a row now, give or take 1.
What you will find that the good left-handers, such as Jimmy Key, the guy we saw on the last day of the season, what they do is that since you're careful, you're really worried about that leg coming behind the rubber, what you do is you put the knee behind the rubber, kind of arch your knee, and you deceive the runner. That's how Key gets away with it. It's not a balk, but it's very deceptive.
I've never heard that before. In other words, it's his knee that goes by the back leg and not his foot.
But this is not something you expect of a rookie pitcher. I saw Mike Flanagan, who has one of the best moves in the American League. They run on his first move. They would take a gamble and they'd go. Now he worked on it. He's obviously a veteran. You don't run on a Mike Flanagan. You run on a Joe McGrain.
Well, with all this going on, you lose sight of the situation. The score is 1-0 St. Louis. There is 1 out, and that's Gladden at first base, as if you didn't know. As if McGrain didn't know. And that's a new World Series record, unofficial. 9 straight.
I'd make it official.
Yeah, I would too. There's a scoop, and it's 0-1.
He should do this more often because he throws more strikes. I mean, he throws over there 8 straight times. He's having trouble throwing strikes. You'd think it'd ruin his concentration. And then he throws a fastball over the plate. Amazing. Of course, I mean, this is the same guy they said that used to, when he was pitching in Shea Stadium, would check out the aircraft to see if they were on schedule. I mean, Whitey says he comes from Planet 7, which is one of the furthest planets away.
He's wonderful.
Yep.
Gotta love the way he thinks.
1-1. Well, a lot has been made about McGrain's flakiness. Don't fool yourself. He is an extremely intelligent fellow.
Yes, sir.
His father is a college professor at Morehead State University, and McGrain, as quotable as any rookie I can recall in years, knows exactly what he's saying and doing. He's playing a game with the media as well. 1-1. 1-2. McGrain, you remember, he was the guy earlier this year when he went on the disabled list. Somebody said, "What have you been doing?" He said, "I've been reading a book, JFK, the Man and the Airport." That's him. He's a communications, or was a communications major at Arizona, and it would figure. Popped in the air, and a tough play. Oquendo and Her and Lindemann, and it falls between them. So the count is still a ball and 2 strikes on Gagne with 1 out and Gladden at first.
One of the major distractions along with the roof are the pitching mounds. The warm-up mounds are on the field. The ball does not fall that close, but if you're a first baseman, you're thinking about it. Second baseman has the better angle, Tommy Her. Oquendo, who knows if he saw it.
I guess with all the injuries and everything that the Cardinals have had, to be topical, you could say they didn't want it to be a fatal distraction.
Okay. 1-2 pitch. A change is popped up, and Lindemann and Her are there, and Tommy calls Lindemann off and makes the catch in foul territory for the second out.
The center fielder, Kirby Puckett.
Kirby Puckett grounded out in the bottom of the first inning. If you pick this up late, the only run in the game, the Cardinals in the second inning. Jim Lindemann hit a fly ball to center. Kirby Puckett got a late start on it, and it dropped for a double. Willie McGee with a fly out long enough to move Lindemann to third, and then Tony Pena grounded to short. And Greg Gagne opted to go to first base, and Lindemann scored. So the Cardinals stretched out a run, as they are prone to do, and lead 1-0.
Good play. Good play. Pena has such quick hands back there. A lot of times his hands are too quick, and his hands are so quick that a lot of times he loses form when he goes after balls in the dirt. Usually when you see a catcher go after a ball in the dirt with his glove, it's the wrong way to go about it, because they want the ball to hit and then hit the chest protector. But Tony is so quick. He has as quick a hands for a catcher as any catcher I've seen.
Crowd chanting, Kirby, Kirby. Gladden goes, pitches a strike, and Pena throws a one-hopper not in time. Her thought he had him. No, says Greg Kosk of the American League. Pena this year threw out only 25% of would-be base stealers.
Makes a good one-hop throw, but again, you steal the base on the pitcher. It took Gladden a long time to figure out McGrain, but got a good jump and beats the throw. Another look from another angle. We said 25 during the regular season. Made a big difference to this ball club. A lot of added speed.
1-1 on Puckett. 2-1.
I'll tell you, I know it sounds strange, but the lower the arc of the ball thrown, the faster it gets to second. Even though this ball bounces, it's a perfect throw. Everybody has a tendency to say, well, he bounced to throw to second. That ball was right there, and had Gladden not had the jump off of McGrain, he wouldn't have stolen the base.
Puckett swinging late at a fastball, and it's 2-2. So Gladden is at second, 2 down. Rick Rennick, the third base coach, and Kirby Puckett, who tied for the American League lead in hits this year at 207 with the Royals rookie Kevin Seitzer. Full count. Gaetti on deck.
And that's what Kirby has to do to be successful. He has to have a good strike zone. He's not a bad ball hitter like Pena. I mean, he can hit the ball up and out over the plate. That's one of his strengths. But this is a guy that did not hit any home runs his first year, then 4, 31 last year, and then 28 this year, and 332. Amazing stats.
Grounded to Tommy Her, a routine play. And the Twins done in the third. To the fourth we go in game 1. Cards 1, Twins nothing. Like a vehicle from McGrain's Planet 7, there sits the Metrodome, fronting downtown Minneapolis, and inside more than 54,000. 1-0 fourth inning, and Ozzie Smith leading off for the Cardinals. Smith, Herr, and Lindemann, the 2, 3, and 4 hitters. Ozzie struck out in the first. And Viola gets the inside corner. 1-1. Frank Viola, who won 17 during the regular year. Half swing. He wanted to check it, and he grounds it down to Lombardozzi. 1 away here in the fourth inning. Viola has yielded just 1 base runner. That the fly ball double that Puckett got a late start on by Lindemann in the second. Meanwhile, for Frank, his thoughts have to be partially elsewhere. His brother, there is John, and Donna Litt, the former Donna Litt, now Donna Viola, were married earlier today at a church in East Meadow, New York, on Long Island. Frank was to have been the best man, as Herb bunts it down the line, and all we can say, I'm sure the reception is winding down. Frank's thoughts with his brother and sister-in-law. And Donna, for your sake, we just hope this baby doesn't go into extra innings tonight.
And we understand that the date was set a year and a half ago, and who would know that on that date, set a year and a half ago, that Frank would be pitching the first game of the World Series here in Minneapolis, especially after the finish, as you pointed out on the opening, of the Twins last year.
1-1 the count.
Well, 71 and 91 last year. So it makes that 85 wins and the other 4 in the playoffs that more meaningful. Of course, Frank Viola pitching here tonight. To me, the interesting thing about the matchup between a left-hander and the Cardinals, you talked about the fact that Coleman and Smith hit better from the left side. They also are the 2 best runners. So you turn them around, and Viola's pitched very well, even though he's trailing. He conceivably could pitch 3 times. So with Pendleton out, Clark out, you have a guy that you really have to rely on.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count. 1 out, bases empty. 1-0 St. Louis in the fourth. Hit sharply to third. Gary Gaetti on a hop, and over to Herbeck, who comes off the bag for the tag. So 2 down now in the fourth inning. And Jim Lindemann coming up.
That again, one of those in-between hops. Infielders rarely catch balls like this cleanly. They'll catch short hops cleanly, but the in-between hops you have to smother, and you really have to smother with softer hands. Good play by Gaetti.
Just kind of collapsed on it. And just waited for the ball to come to him. I mean, that is the definition of soft hands, not hands of rock. It's one that just kind of cushions the ball as it comes in towards you. Gaetti certainly showed him there.
Anytime you see an infielder going down with the glove, they're stabbing at the ball. The good ones come up, catch it with soft hands.
Jim Lindemann takes a strike and the count 1-1.
First Tommy could almost see that a collision was imminent, and he just pulled up. He's out anyway.
Late swing by Lindemann, who might be eventually, even though he's the first baseman here, Spelman Clark, the Cardinals' right fielder of the future.
Well, he is the reason they went out and traded for Tony Pena. He had a great, good year last year, 20 home runs, good winter ball. They thought it made Andy Van Slyke expendable, Mike LaValliere.
That's hit into right field, and it's been all Lindemann offensively for the Cardinals tonight. Viola has retired every other batter, and Lindemann is now 2 for 2.
Along with Mike Dung, who went over to Pittsburgh and won 13 games, but Lindemann had a great spring. Let's take another look. The looper to center, this one he just fights off, but when you have good bat speed, even if you get jammed, you can fight the ball off. A guy with a slower bat most likely would break his bat, give the infielder time to get in front of that ball. Especially on the turf, though, here. I mean, you hit them where they're not, and they hit the ball sharply, you have no chance at all.
McGee in the dirt. 1-0 on Willie. Willie McGee bothered by that wrist, but still 308 in the National League Championship Series. And a nice running catch early in Game 6, which eventually wound up as the Cardinals' 1-0 victory to tie the series.
A catch off the bat of Jose Uribe.
1-1. Lindemann held on by Herbeck. Toward the hole, backhanded by Gagne, throws back to second. No! Lombardozzi thought he had him. He scooped it out. The second base umpire, Greg Kost, says safe. Base hit. First and second.
Well, Gagne really had only one play. The short hop, watch. Nope, the high hop there, and he does all he can to throw it to Lombardozzi, but Lindemann made a nice play. Sliding straight in. I'll tell you, the day of the hook slide is gone. You rarely see base runners hooking into bases, and the reason for that is you get there quicker when you go in straight in. He was clearly safe, too. Pardon me, Al.
Lindemann at second base, and McGee, the runner at first, with two down. Tony Pena grounded out in the second to drive in Lindemann. Pena with that huge swing. You would think he hits a lot of home runs, but he doesn't. He hit 5 during the regular year.
His high was 15 with the Pirates a couple of years ago. Tony doesn't get cheated. You gotta love to watch him hit. He really kind of corkscrews himself into the ground with those swings at the high fastball.
Reminds me so much, excuse me, Tim, of Manny Sanguillen, who's a bad ball hitter. Also the type of stroke, it's not an uppercut stroke. You hit down at the ball, you're going to hit more line drives, more ground balls. And I'm talking to Johnny Lewis, the batting instructor. He said that's what we want our guys to do. When Clark's not in the lineup, fly balls kill us. They're outs. We want those line drives and ground balls.
0-2 pitch, fouled away. Funny you talk about Sanguillen. Pena's got that same rubbery body that Manny had, or has. We're talking about bodies of its past tense. Johnny Lewis is the Cardinal hitting instructor.
This year, last year when they had that bad offensive year, he laid low. He couldn't find him. I was kidding him about that. He said this year, I work with Clark a lot. He had 35 home runs.
0-2 to Pena. Still 0-2.
I was going to say the jury really is still out as to that trade. What team was really positively affected? The trade to Pittsburgh that sent Mike LaValliere and Andy Van Slyke and Mike Dunn over there, all of whom had very, very good years. Mike Dunn may be the National League Pitcher of the Year, Rookie Pitcher of the Year. Tony Pena, though, you really can't equate really what happened to him earlier in the year when he broke his thumb early April and he was out for 6 weeks, because when he came back he tried to make up for lost time, and in my opinion his skills did not diminish at all. This guy is still a quality catcher.
And the bottom line is the St. Louis Cardinals are in the World Series. Speared by Viola, who helps himself out of the inning. Cardinals squandered 2 singles. St. Louis 1, Minnesota 0, going to the bottom of the 4th. And the Wizard himself. Oh, Smith, as if you didn't know which Smith it was, huh?
A lot of people have been saying oh since he's played in the Major League.
I would have thought he'd thrown more pitches with the
me too.
4 walks and the struggling. What's made him effective, Tim, and this is a lot like Juan Berenguer, who we saw pitch in the playoffs for Minnesota.
Gaetti grounds it down the line, backhanded by Lawless, and too late. And the Twins have their first hit. Gary Gaetti gets an infield single, and Don Baylor will come to the plate.
Well, going back to that thought is that he doesn't throw the ball consistently in any spot. As you watch Gaetti dive to his, Lawless dive to his right. Gaetti hit the ball. It's a play that Pendleton may have made only because he has a stronger arm. Wallace, great play to get to the ball, but that's the difference between a Pendleton
And Baylor hits it up the middle for a base hit. Gaetti takes a short turn at second as the throw comes in behind him. And get ready for a little bit of noise in the Metrodome.
See the mobility of Wallace. Again, a utility infield. Did not play that much. He played all around. Just does not have as strong as arm.
So the Twins, who trail 1-0, runners at first and second. The crowd waving the homer hankies as Brunansky stands in. High, 1-0. Brunansky walk in the second inning. He's checking with Rennick. It doesn't figure there's always the possibility, though, of the... I wonder if they have sacrifice hankies here.
No way he's bunting. Not with the American League Championship Series that he had.
Ripped into center for a base hit in front of McGee. Rennick will hold Gaetti at third, and they're loaded with nobody out.
I'll tell you, it's amazing. Joe McGrain in the second inning and the bottom of the third inning ran 3-2 counts to 4 straight hitters. Well, on 4 pitches, the Twins had the bases loaded and nobody out. Gaetti gave him a look, but with nobody out, Rick Rennick held him at third, and that is proper. Even though with 2 outs and they send him, you probably score a run, but with nobody out, you just can't take the chance.
There was a conference at the mound. Whitey Herzog looks on, and he has sent Bob Forsch to the bullpen. There he is.
One of the 3 starting pitchers, really a swingman that won 11 games for the Cardinals.
Rourke now. Mike Rourke goes to the mound again. Singles by Gaetti, Baylor, and Brunansky, and now Herbeck coming up, the left-handed batter, the number 7 hitter.
Part of this is for Mike Rourke to talk to Tony Pena and Joe McGrain to give Forsch a chance to warm up a little more in the bullpen. You see another couple of hits, you might see a move by Whitey.
Meanwhile, Whitey, and he earns it. He sits on a piece of patio furniture at odd sight. And Tom Kelly, a rookie manager, first rookie manager to get it to the World Series since Harvey Keene did it with the Brewers in '82, and Harvey took over in the middle of that year.
Tom actually took over the latter part of last year. He was 12-11 with the Twins last year. And they did take some time in naming him the manager for the '87 season, but Andy McPhail obviously made the right move.
The Twins with a 36-year-old manager and a 34-year-old general manager. Oh, and 1 on Herbeck. So the bases are loaded. Nobody out. Gaetti at third, Baylor at second, and Brunansky at first. Toward the middle, through for a base hit. Gaetti scores. Baylor scores. Brunansky goes to third. The ball hits him. Bounds away, backed up by McGrain. Herbeck goes to second.
Great presence of mind by McGrain as you watch Ken Herbeck taking a look at what's transpiring over third base. One of the most difficult things is give up a 2-run single and then cover the base you're supposed to. But McGrain did it at 23. Not happy about the outcome, but there to save him another run.
Twins lead. Lombardozzi takes inside, and the Cardinal infield back at short and second. But remember, Ozzie throws on the run on a hard ground ball. He's got a chance to throw out Bernansky at the plate.
Well, I'll tell you, with the difficulty the Cardinals have scoring runs, I think the proper play is to pull the right side up, because Lombardozzi is not going to hit the ball with authority to the right side. At least that's the theory on which you have to go.
In the dirt. 2-0, and there's Herr playing well back and Lindemann at first.
Now you think about this, a ground ball to Tommy Herr, you get the out at first base, Herbeck moves to third, Brunansky scores, and not only is it 3-1, but the Twins have in effect moved another runner at third with less than 2 outs. I think Herr ought to at least be halfway.
2-1 the count. And especially with the type of attack the Cardinals have, and with Clark not there and Pendleton not there,
right.
Even though they're a resilient, resourceful team, this is a team that's going to find it very difficult to come from behind.
That's why it made it that much more remarkable when they came from behind against the Giants in Game 3 of the playoffs.
Down 4-0 at one point. Commissioner Peter Ueberroth and Senator Bob Dole looking on.
Commissioner looks stunned, awestruck. Some sight, I'll tell you.
And they're loaded. Holding at third, Brunansky. Whitey Herzog to the mound and to the bullpen. And so McGrain's world unravels here in the 4th inning. And Bob Forrest will come in.
You see Pena blocked the ball. Again, with nobody out, you're not going to take a chance. So you stay at third base.
Forrest comes in with the bases loaded, nobody out.
A rough 4th inning for Joe McGrain.
Also a very typical AstroTurf type inning. Ground ball, broken bat hit. Lawless couldn't come up with it. One ball hit real hard, but he really did not help himself with his wildness. Forrest 11-7 on the year, pitched 3 times in the National League playoffs. Was 1-1, and really the high ERA is attributed to one time he pitched, I think, less than an inning, didn't get anybody out. 3 runs, or 3 hits, 4 runs, something like that. But other times he pitched extremely well. He is a control pitcher.
The 0-1 pitch is grounded to right for a base hit. Bernansky scores. Herbeck stops at third. They're still loaded, and it's 3-1.
Talked earlier about Laudner. Slider speed bat. Slider away. He doesn't try to pull it. He just hits it the other way. It's a great philosophy of hitting on AstroTurf. He tries to pull that ball, no doubt, will hit the ball to the shortstop. Double play ball.
Now Dan Gladden, still nobody out in the inning. 5 singles and a walk. 3-1 Twins. Gladden 0 for 2. 1-0 the count. Herbeck is at third. Lombardozzi at second. And Laudner at first. And Gladden is the leadoff hitter. And there's a beat. And what's a ball game without a beach ball these days?
What beach is indoors?
The decibel level here at the Metrodome so high, and if you watch any of the American League Championship Series, you know what this crowd is capable of doing, audio-wise, and so that's the reason McGrain was trying to block out the sound. What he really needed, though, in the 4th inning was a blindfold. In the air, down the line, and curling foul back out of play.
sure the Cardinals are thinking, this is the team that's supposed to hit 196 home runs, and they're doing what we normally do. 5 singles, hitting the ball where it's pitched. They're not running as well as the Cardinals. A couple of one base at a time situations, but you can do that when you have 3 runs in, the bases loaded, nobody out. Don't take too many chances.
Tom Kelly, he just sits and looks and wins. Spun foul off the end of the bat, 1-2. Dan Gladden, who played with the Giants through last season, he came up as a center fielder. Then the Twins got him. The Giants found him expendable. He'd worn out his welcome in San Francisco. And he really wanted the Giants to beat the Cardinals. He was really looking forward to going back. High in the air to deep left field. Coleman goes back. A grand slam.
The home run by Gladden. Reminds you a little bit of Harmon Killebrew. Threw out the first ball.
Harmon Killebrew, 573 career home runs. That's only the 9th hit by Dan Gladden this year. Oh boy.
We talked about the tremendous home record. You come in here, and if you're a visiting team, you usually don't like what you see, and that's no exception.
Teammate of yours in 1970. You saw the last one, right, Jim?
Herbeck tagging in case it was caught. It wasn't. And for the first time in 17 years, a World Series slam. Dan Gladden. And the crowd is finally half settled down to the point where the game can resume. Gagne is the batter. 0-1. Still nobody out. And he's the 8th man to hit in the inning. 7-1 Twins. To right field to Oquendo. Stays with it for the out. And that's the first out of the inning as they have hit around now with Puckett coming up. Kirby is 0 for 2. If you're wondering about some World Series grand slams, McNally hitting the last one. Jim Northrup hit one in 68.
I called it.
Joe Pepitone, that's right.
Yep.
Joe Pepitone in 64. Ken Boyer.
I called it. Joe Pepitone. So 2 out of the last 4 I've called.
Puckett grounds it to short. Smith is right there, playing it perfectly to throw him out. 2 down, and now Gaetti, who started the inning with an infield single coming up.
You know, the one by Kenny Boyer in the 64 series, won game 4 for the Cardinals against Al Downing, an 0-2 changeup, and a grand slam home run. The Cardinals won it 4-3. That tied it at 2 games apiece, and the Cardinals went on to win in 7.
There were 2 also hit in the 56 series, Yogi Berra and Bill Skowron. And then Chuck Hiller, remember, hit one for San Francisco against
Whitey
the Yankees.
I think Whitey Ford was the pitcher, I believe.
1-0 pitch, 1-1. So it sort of points up what we said at the top about the heroes. You never know where they'll come from. Mickey Mantle has hit a grand slam in the World Series. Yogi Berra has hit a grand slam. And now Dan Gladden. You really never know. 1-2.
We also talked about the depth of the Cardinal pitching staff before the game started, and I'm sure Whitey Herzog didn't want to use his pitchers in this fashion because of their depth in a 7-1 blowout.
Forsch is a guy that has given him a lot of innings this year. 33 appearances during the regular season, 30 starts. So, as we said, he's a swing man that they used in the playoffs for relief, but started normally during the season.
And Whitey can get more use out of him tonight than he might in the National League park because of the designated hitter situation.
So actually something he doesn't want to do is really a godsend in a way that he doesn't have to pinch hit for him. Which is a big difference between American League Baseball and National League ball. Something we'll see.
Excuse me, Jim. Tom Kelly, on the other hand, can, if this game gets out of reach, can pitch Viola 6 innings since he's only going to work on 3 days rest the next time out.
High fly ball to center field, and this will finally do it. And McGee has lost it, and so has Coleman. And there is your basic Metrodome double. McGee initially looked as if he had it, then had no clue. And by the time Coleman could discover it, Gaetti has a double.
Well, Vince knows it's up there. He sees it bounce. He was looking at the ball all the way, Al, but does not really see it once it gets up into the roof till it comes down and bounces.
So he had no clue, and McGee had no clue. Baylor grounds it to third, and Wallace throws to first and throws it low, but the inning is finally over. 11 men to the plate, and it's 7-1 Minnesota. Furniture aside, no day at the beach for Whitey Herzog thus far. 7-1 Minnesota as we go to the 5th inning. And Jose Oquendo to start things off, then Pagnazzi and Lawless. Oquendo foul to Gladden in the 2nd inning. 0-for-1. Frank Viola leading by 6. And isn't that a beautiful feeling for a pitcher?
Well, it is, and he will not deter the way he pitches. He started him off with a changeup. No doubt Oquendo looking for a fastball. Doesn't get one, gets another changeup. This is why Viola has been such a special pitcher this year. We said 11-3 here at, it's hard to say the Homer Dome. That's not actually the name, but that's the way it was the first year when we used to come in here. Very effective because you just never know what's coming.
It's more of a run dome the way it's turned out, and through the course of the series we'll bring it up from time to time. It was misnamed in a way. It really produces no more home runs than your average ballpark, but more runs. Fouled away.
Well, the first year it was named the Homer Dome only because they tried to get this stadium, this dome built under budget. They did not air condition it. The ball did carry much better the first year. The next year they put air conditioning in, and the home runs, you still hit home runs, but the Twins are a home run hitting ball club. They hit it just as many on the road. Maybe not just as many, but the percentage is very close.
There it is, and it's almost dead even. Home runs per 100 at-bats at the Dome and away.
There are a lot of ballparks, especially in the American League. Take another look at that graphic, like Seattle, where there's 40% more home runs hit up at the Kingdome than there are on the road.
Those figures over the last 5 years, and also this year, the telltale figure, more home runs hit in Twins road games than home games. Gagne drops it, picks it up, has time, and throws him out. One away, Pagnazzi coming up, and I asked Whitey Herzog about the keys for the Cardinals in winning this World Series?
Well, we're going to have to get good pitching, and we're going to have to hope that we can play well here these first 2 games. I saw the playoffs with Detroit. I know what happened there. We feel we got a little bit more of advantage. We're on turf, and if McGrain tonight especially can just go out and pitch his ball game, let the ball fly, and keep the ball in the ballpark, then I think we got a chance. If they start hitting the ball out on us, it's going to be tough, because when we get down now, we know that we're going to have to be aggressive on the bases. If we get some base runners, we're going to have to run. We're going to have to hit and run, but we're really going to have to be aggressive, and we're going to have to try and manufacture runs, and we're going to stay with the Twins.
And right now they are down by 6, and Pagnazzi has just grounded out to Viola. 2 down, and Lawless coming up. Doral Norman Herzog loves to fish, loves to manage,
Loves to win.
He is great. There is no 2 ways about it. When you can take this team this year to the World Series, you can manage.
That's really true.
How about the 3 million people that enjoy watching the Cardinals play? And that's another amazing stat. But the Mets, over 3 million this year. The Cardinals, Dodgers didn't do it this year, have done it in the past.
But the Cardinals drawing over 3 million after a bad year last year. They had a great year in '85, winning the National League pennant. And then, of course, Kansas City beat them after they were up 3-1. They won 3 in a row. Game 5 in St. Louis, then 6 and 7 in Kansas City. But Whitey, I don't think, has ever faced the adversity that he's faced this year, especially in bringing a team to the World Series.
1-2 the count. And you'll ask him things like, is this your most satisfying year? And you really don't want to say it when you're coming right off it, but I suspect down the line, when Whitey writes the memoirs, this will have a very special chapter, 87.
Everybody's making so much on the other hand of the Minnesota Twins in their 85 victories. I think we tried to highlight in the opening remarks that they are not the same team now that they were when they compiled those 85 victories. Really, since the last part of August, they were 18-9 in the month of September, and they lost 5 insignificant games at the end of the year. But I mean, they just blew the Tigers right out of the ballpark. Perfect.
And they played with such poise and such outward and obvious confidence. They look like a team that has been to the playoffs 6 times in the last 10 years.
Yeah, they've really taken on the character of their manager, Tom Kelly, and for that, he deserves an awful lot of credit. For a lot of other things, too.
Like a raise?
He's already gotten it.
He got one of those. He better have gotten one of those. I believe he was the lowest paid manager in baseball this year. If not, close enough. Tom Kelly, pitching coach Dick Such. Two and 2. Getting ahead.
Well, that's what they tell you from the first time you ever go to a minor league camp. Got to pitch ahead. You said it many times, a game at first. Get the first batter out, first pitch over.
Two out, bases empty in the top of the 5th inning at the Metrodome, where it's 7-1 Minnesota. In a time call, there's some debris in the outfield.
Thing about Viola, he certainly, as that graphic showed, he certainly has stayed ahead tonight. He has stayed ahead all year. He's 17-10. He had a marvelous year.
Well, with the dome, we can't have a blip, of course, but that's
right.
It's a pretty shot from about a mile away.
You know, Ed Sherman of the Chicago Tribune had a great line. He said the outside of the dome looks like your grandmother's old Jell-O mold. that does depict it. Grandmother's old Jell-O mold. Now, does it look like that? Yeah. Strawberry with the lights on.
Sure.
Yeah. A little amber tone to it.
3-2 to Lawless is a little squibber foul.
But staying ahead, getting back to that point that you made so well, Jim, is so important. But Viola has the added ability to pitch well when he's behind in the count, because hitters just can't sit on the fastball. You put those two combinations, the ability to stay ahead, and when you don't, the ability to pitch behind in the count, and you've got a pitcher the quality of Frank Viola.
3-2 pitch, got him. Strikeout number 4. Cardinals got an order at the end of 4.5. 7-1 Minnesota. Frank Viola very much in command.
It's not a sneeze, is it?
No, that's an exhale. No, it's just that you can apply the same thing. If you look at Bert Blyleven on your right, Juan Berenguer on your left. If you lift weights, you don't hold your breath. You exhale. Same with pitching.
Bernansky starts the bottom of the 5th by grounding to Lawless. Tom gone, 1 up and 1 down, and you saw Blyleven, and he will be on the mound. And the Cardinals have opted for Danny Cox. They're going to come out of their playoff rotation. Whitey Herzog wants John Tudor, who's had tremendous success in St. Louis, to pitch Game 3 back in St. Louis, and it will be Cox, who pitched so brilliantly in the playoff clincher, tomorrow night on 3 days rest. A strike to Herbeck, 0-1.
Against Bert Blyleven, 15-game winner. Over 3,000 strikeouts. 2 big wins for the Twins in the playoffs, so he's pitched very well. He's been prone to give up home runs, but nothing wrong with that. Threw a few in my day.
He's pitching to the right ball club. The Cardinals with only 94 home runs this year. They only had 58 last year. So for a pitcher who is prone to give up the home run ball, you don't mind. Of course, they can do a lot of other things to muster runs, but you'd be glad to pitch against the Cardinals as opposed to the San Francisco Giants, for instance.
Well, they only hit 205, but you take Clark with 35 and Pendleton out of lineup with 12. You've subtracted, what, 47 home runs.
3-2 the count on Herbeck.
It's exactly half, as a matter of fact. Plus, with Pendleton, you lose a lot of defense. No knock at Tom Lawless, obviously, but I think the biggest thing, you lose 96 RBIs.
And Herbeck is on. So Bob Forsch yields his first walk. It's been a perfect night for Herbeck. 2 walks and a 2-run single. And Steve Lombardozzi comes up. You know, the funny thing about the Twins, in talking with them yesterday, none of them said that he really thought he had a real good year, a real great year. And certainly when you looked at the figures, nobody had a career year for Minnesota. When teams win pennants, normally a bunch of guys have career years, or you have dominating pitching or something. This is the ultimate team effort.
Of course, the difference, excuse me, Tim, is, as you said, is Reardon, 31 saves. That's something they didn't have before. So, again, confidence is so important in your ability to win.
And yet Reardon, even though he had a good year and made a difference, didn't have that kind of spectacular year when a reliever comes in and has 40 saves and a 1.8 ERA. Reardon had a lot of saves, 31, but his ERA was 4.48.
Primarily because of the first month and a half pitching for Minnesota, but if you look at all of their averages, they're about right in the middle.
In the air to deep left field, and they're going to turn this place into bedlam again.
Another look, tries to get it in As you said in Detroit on last Sunday, doesn't get it in, and there's the result. Only 8 home runs during the course of the season.
Laudner hits a fly ball to center field, and Willie McGee is there for the second out. Steve Lombardozzi with Herbeck on board. And a curtain call for the man they call Lombo. And here's Gladden. 1-0. Fourth inning, bases loaded. First World Series slam in 17 years. Nine to 1 Minnesota. 2 out, bases empty in the bottom of the 5th.
They've had a lot of firsts. Gary Gaetti, the first player ever to hit 2 home runs back-to-back in his first postseason game. He did that against the Tigers.
I really think that's one of the things that got him the most valuable player. Brunansky had a great series, but
yeah.
I think what it did, the 2 home runs off Doyle Alexander, it made believers out of the Twins.
2 balls, 2 strikes, with 2 out and the bases empty. On deck is Greg Gagne. 9 runs, 8 hits, and no errors for the Twins. 1 run, 3 hits, and no errors for the Cardinals. The Twins going through the lineup for the 4th time in the game in the 5th inning, and Gladden is on.
Okay, I'd like to make the point again that if the Cardinals were going to lose this game, they would have preferred to have lost a relatively close game, because with Frank Viola, one of the keys for the Minnesota Twins, pitching on 3 days rest, he'll probably come back next Wednesday night in St. Louis. I think Tom Kelly has the luxury of seeing Viola possibly work about 70 to 75 pitches tonight, get him out of there, use your bullpen, and have him rested next week.
In the air to right field, Oquendo goes into the corner and makes the catch in fair territory. But the Twins get 2 more on the Lombardozzi homer, and we go to the 6th with Minnesota leading 9-1. To the 6th we go. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. Game 1 of the World Series, and the St. Louis Cardinals trailing 9-1. The Minnesota Twins, winners of the ALCS in 5, and picking up where they left off in Detroit on Monday. They've had 4 days of rest, and they come out tonight and throw up a 9 spot through 5. Ball 1 to Coleman. Coleman, Smith, and Herr. And you talk about taking a team out of its game. The Cardinals scratching and clawing and speed. Forget that. In there for a strike when you're down by 8. One and 1. There is Joe Niekro, who might pitch in game 4. Tom Kelly said if they lead 3-0. Brunansky chases this one into the corner, and he owns that corner. It is a very tricky right field corner here in Minneapolis. Brunansky knows it very, very well. The Cardinals, in their workouts, were hitting balls into that corner so they could get used to the crazy caroms.
Well, the first thing Jose Oquendo said is that very tricky. Not only can you not see the ball when it comes off the bat, if it gets down into that corner, he said, I could have a problem.
Ozzie Smith hits a grounder to short, and one shortstop throws out the other. Quickly, 2 gone. Have a look. The tarpaulin, the tall screen, and then right into the corner. And nobody knows that spot better than Brunansky.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of caroms off of that hefty bag type of material that they have out there.
Tommy Herr now as Viola delivers his 77th pitch, and the point Tim makes is such a good one. Kelly has the luxury of getting Viola out of there with his huge lead and then bringing him back fresh on Wednesday.
Well, you also give your relief, and we talked about Berenguer and Reardon. You can give them an inning apiece. They have not pitched since Monday. They both pitched in that game. Get them acclimated to the World Series play.
And Viola just sailing along as Gagne takes care of her. At the end of 5½, Twins 9, Cardinals 1. Bottom of the 6th inning, Kirby Puckett to lead things off with Bob Forsch working in long relief. 1-0. Kirby has not joined the hit parade tonight, as you see. Has yet to hit the ball out of the infield. And that trend continues on a little pop-up, which Lindemann takes care of. 1 away, so Puckett is gone. And it will bring up Gary Gaetti, who tonight will be known as Mr. First. First major league at-bat back in '81, hit a homer. He hit those 2 against Detroit in Game 1 of the ALCS, and tonight he's the first since Merv Rettenmund in 1971 to get 2 hits in an inning.
I'll tell you, and you can add to that, the first game of the 1982 season, he had 2 home runs in this ballpark in the first game of the season.
And the first regular season game to be played here.
Yeah, right.
Park opening that year. Lawless throws it in the dirt, and Lee Wire was ready to signal out. It was in time, but Lindemann couldn't hold it. And it's an error, E5.
Another look. Lawless throwing on the run. We've already seen it. Not a very strong throw from behind the bag. There, another throw that short hops him. Lindemann tries to come up with it. Unable to do it.
Baylor now. Don has flied out, singled, and grounded out. The World Series following Baylor around. Don with the Red Sox last year. And had the Giants won, it would have put Kevin Mitchell into the World Series for the 2nd straight year. He played with the Mets in '86. Fouled away. Funny thing about Baylor, they picked him up because of his persona, his presence, his experience, and the rest. But this is a ball club that's been together a long time. He didn't hurt, obviously. It was good to have a Baylor in the clubhouse, but the Twins were a pretty close-knit and well-molded team to begin with.
He certainly didn't help the Twins like he helped the Boston Red Sox last year, because for that type of charisma to come out and to surface, you got to spend time with people.
But you really never know what's going to happen. And when you look at the matchups, 3 left-handers in the starting rotation, the DH, he will have a chance to maybe play a little bit, not in the, obviously in St. Louis ballpark.
That's grounded to Ozzie Smith, and he'll settle for the out at first base, getting Baylor and moving Gaetti down to 2nd. Brunansky will be the hitter.
But it's nice to have somebody like Don Baylor who has been there before. He's not the player that he was last year when he hit 31 home runs, as you take a look at Ricky Horton. But he did hit 16, still plays the game very hard. He's a great example for a lot of young players which form this Minnesota ball club. Brunansky's been around a long time, but they're still a little bit short in experience, not in talent.
2 out, Gaetti at 2nd, Kerr for a strike, 0-1.
A lot of people were concerned about the fact that they won in 5 games and they were going to have 5 days off. And Tom Kelly, a firm believer in important part of a player's ability is his legs. Had him doing a lot of running, simulated games. Matter of fact, we talked about Gary Gaetti. He's a guy that hit 31 home runs this year, 34 last year. Go back to 1984, he only hit 5. And Kelly attributes to hurting his Achilles tendon in spring training, never getting his legs under him. So one thing he wanted to have coming into this series was a well-conditioned ball club. So it made him work out during those off days.
1-1 to Bruno is up high. we lapse into calling these guys by their nicknames occasionally. It's because here in Minnesota they're known as Bruno and G-Man and Kirby and Herbie.
The Fab Four.
Fab Four.
Lombo.
Yep, just a little local color for you folks. To center, and McGee spots this one, I think, and makes the catch. At the end of 6, it is Minnesota 9, St. Louis 1. That's right, Willie, 3 gone. Go back to the dugout. And we'll be back with Game 1 after this word from your local station. Well, we go to the 7th inning. You know, the NFL loves to talk about parity. What about baseball? This is the 7th different team to represent the American League in the last 7 years.
And as a matter of fact, since divisional play started, the American League has won 9 World Series, and the National League's won 9 World Series.
Do you believe in miracles, huh? Well, they know all about miracles up here because the hockey team to which they refer, so many of them came from this area.
They forgot yes.
Yeah, that's right. Now they're waiting for the clinch. 7th inning as Jim Lindemann starts things off. Lindemann, McGee, and Pena. 9-1. Twins on top. A. Bartlett Giamatti, the president of the National League.
You can read lips. He said, swing the bat. Easy for him to say. Easy for a Renaissance man to say that. I mean,
Liner caught by Gagne.
Yeah, this has been anything but a divine comedy for A. Bartlett Giamatti tonight.
Poor guy sits there as the ultimate impartial observer all year long. Finally gets a chance to root, and his team is down by 8.
9-1 blowout. Good play by Gagne.
Willie McGee now. 0-1. Frank Viola working on McGee with 1 out in the 7th inning. Twins exploded for 7 in the 4th, highlighted by Dan Gladden's grand slam, and a 2-run homer by Lombardozzi in the 5th. McGee singles into center, so Willie has 2 hits tonight, and he is on. That's the first hit for the Cardinals since McGee with an infield hit in the 4th inning.
to further expand what you talked about earlier, Tim, the luxury of Tom Kelly staying with Viola or giving his bullpen an inning or so apiece, it also makes it a lot easier if you're a veteran pitcher and you have command of your pitches to pitch with a 9-1 lead. Every pitch doesn't mean the ball game as it would in a 2-1 type of game or a 3-2 game or whatever the case is. So the 84 pitches is really not an exceptionally low amount, but he's doing it without a lot of duress, both mentally and physically.
Pena, strike. There is Jeff Reardon, the bearded one, who will probably get the night off. The ace of the bullpen. One and one. Kind of funny, if there's a downside to a blowout game tonight, is that the Twins have had 4 days off. Reardon's going to get another day off to make it 5.
Jim's point well taken the last inning, that maybe by getting Berenguer and Reardon in for an inning might be the shrewd thing, thereby resting Viola. But Tom Kelly does not appear to be going in that direction.
That's grounded to Gaetti, over to Lombardozzi, back to Herbeck, double play. Dreamland under the dome.
Well, superlative play by the Minnesota infield. We saw the line drive to Gagne here. Gaetti to Lombardozzi. You saw the agility, the arm strength. And Herbeck, outstanding fielding first baseman with a great pickup. So everybody played a part in that inning.
And here is Herbeck to be followed by Lombardozzi and then Laudner in the bottom of the 7th inning. 9-1 Minnesota.
on this double play. Routine because of the score, but look how Lombardozzi uses the bag to prevent the runner, Willie McGee, from taking him out. There are a lot of ways that second baseman can do that. They can cheat and come across the bag, but on a slowly hit ball like that, it's often better to use that bag for defense. The runner can't get to you. He can't go through the bag, even though some have tried doing that.
And some have. Look at Bill Madlock, Tony Fernandez.
In the air to left field, and a long run for Coleman, and even with Vince's speed, he can't get there. So the count is 2-2. So the Twins on top, and meanwhile Tom Kelly just sits and looks and watches and waits. Kelly, we mentioned before, a guy who, and there he is, a real good guy and a good sense of humor. He's in his office during the playoffs, and somebody came to the stadium and somehow was able to get a hold of Tom on his office phone, and the guy said, "The Lord has sent me to you to pitch the first game." And instead of blowing him off as some nut, he talked to him for a while, and he finally explained, "You know, I'd love to use you, but the league says you have to be with the team by September 1st. And the guy said, "Okay, fine, thank you, sir."
It's a very diplomatic way of handling things.
How great is that? That's Tom Kelly. Time called, no pitch.
Well, I think he's finding one of the most difficult things, and it's really, it's kind of snowballed the last couple of years, is the media crush at a World Series. And you have to talk to people and whatever. And he says, "I know it's boring, but we're going to do the best we can. Nothing different."
That's a staple line. We'll do the best we can.
And then he says, "I know it's boring."
3-2 pitch is fouled away.
But he's not a boring man.
No.
By no means, no.
Rick Horton on in relief. You saw him warming up in the bullpen, and he picks up here in the mop-up role in the 7th inning. 3 balls, 2 strikes on Kent Herbeck. A little looper, and that'll be caught by Tom Lawless for the out, and it will bring up Lombardozzi. Another thing about Kelly is yesterday during the media crunch at the Twins workout, a couple of kids apparently sneaked in along with the rest of the media from a school, a nearby school, and they had their own little handheld mini cam. They were going to take it back to their professor to show them that they could do some interviews. Kelly gave the guy an interview. They approached them and told him, "Sure." Strike. 0-1 to count on Lombardozzi. Ripped through the box. One out and one on, and Tim Laudner will be the batter.
It's amazing. Lombardozzi, a home run. You think he might overswing. He goes back to the basics, which is why he's been an improved hitter, hitting the ball back up the middle. And Horton had an excellent year for the Cardinals. If you look at their pitching, you look at Worrell as their stopper along with Ken Daly. But early in the year, when Daly was coming back from the elbow problems, Ricky Horton, and you saw the 8 saves, he carried him the first month. Worrell hurt his arm, strained it, and eventually ended up with 33 saves. But Horton bailed him out early in the year when they needed a lot of wins.
Well, he's so versatile, too. He can start, he can be in middle relief, and as you said, he can be used in short relief. 67 appearances this year.
And as Al says, he can mop up. And we say that, we don't mean that to denigrate a pitcher, because Force came in, wasn't very sharp. I mean, Kenny has won over 140 ball games, so he knows sometimes you have to take one for the club. You go out there, you give them the innings, even though you are not pitching up to your capabilities. Tough to concentrate in a ball game that is 9-1, but it will make Horton sharper the next time he has to pitch in this World Series, if he does.
0-1 the count, 1 out. And now 0-2 on Laudner. Well, there were a bunch of them, a dozen. Cardinals played right field this season, including 10 starters. Horton and Todd Worrell, who played there in one playoff game, were amongst the 12 in the regular season.
An even better graphic, and I'm sure that Steve Hurt could come up with it, is how many putouts did they have? When they got out there, did they have any company?
Ricky told me he had one ball hit over his head, went for a double. He said, but at least he hit the cutoff man.
Did it go over his head, or did he run in and, I mean, did he go into a really detailed description?
He said he was playing deep and the ball was hit like a rocket against the Philadelphia Phillies. As a matter of fact, that's when Todd Worrell played right field also.
I think he escaped.
Yeah,
out
he
there.
did.
I don't think anything went his way.
As a matter of fact, I think Ken Daly came in, struck out Von Hayes, and then Worrell came back in the ballgame.
Laudner strikes out. And it will bring up the fella the 40 or the Giant fans used to call the man from Glad, Dan Glad.
We just got to take a look at the strikeout of Timmy Laudner. What makes Ricky Horton, and it's very much like what we're going to see from John Tudor and maybe Greg Matthews, is the good changeup to go along with the breaking ball and the fastball, and excellent control. That ball down and away for the strikeout.
1-0 the count on Dan Gladden. Grand slam in the 4th inning. Cardinals started the night with a run in the 2nd, and then Minnesota exploded for 7 in the 4th, 2 more in the 5th, and it's been a night of joy and celebration in Minneapolis.
I'll tell you what, if Steve Bardozzi gets too far off first, it'll be a night of getting back to the dugout, because Horton has one of the best pickoff moves in the National League, voted by the National League managers as the outstanding pickoff move. So even with 9-1, you're not really in a hurry to get to second base unless there's a base hit. Again, I imagine the scouting report, the advanced scouting report, would tell him that.
You get picked off when it's 9-1, you better be embarrassed no matter who's on the mound with what move.
Well, I'll tell you, really, because it's 9-1, Lindemann now playing behind Lombardozzi. Whitey Herzog figuring that Lombardozzi's not going anywhere.
Pretty safe assumption, I would think. Strike, 3-1. And a strike, and it's 3-2. Two out. Lombardozzi at first. Gladden. Rips one down the line and into the corner for extra bases. And let's see how Oquendo plays the carom. He played it perfectly, but still it can't stop another run from scoring. 10-1.
Jim, you mentioned Lombardozzi going back through the middle after the home run. A good piece of hitting by Gladden going the other way after the home run earlier in the ball game. And the reason for that, and I know you were thinking the same thing, when guys hit 8 or 9 home runs during a year and they happen to hit one, the best trait the next at bat is to hit the ball the other way. And the best thing to do, the reason for that, you don't become overly enamored with your power and don't start opening up thinking you're becoming a home run hitter. Lombardozzi did it, now Gladden did it.
I think a hitting instructor would say realism. Be what you are.
About that many in the ballpark tonight. The Metrodome. 10-1 Minnesota with Gladden at second. 2 down. Gagne hits a ground ball to the hole. Ozzie Smith throws on the run and gets him. A nice play, but very much lost in the shuffle tonight. We go to the 8th, 10-1 Minnesota. Frank Viola, who has not lost here since May. The beneficiary of a 10-1 advantage as we go to the 8th inning. Jose Oquendo to start things, taking inside, ball 1. Oquendo, Pagnazzi, and Lawless in the 8th. 1-1. And in the bullpen, Keith Atherton is probably, more than anything else, just getting in some throwing. He's one of the long men. Conceivably, he could come in, but you've got to start thinking about throwing between appearances, if nothing else, right now.
Also, Jeff Reardon has gone down to the bullpen, and in a 10-1 ball game, you wouldn't think he would go to the bullpen unless he was going to be up in the 9th inning.
2 balls, 1 strike the count. 2-2. Those are the hands of somebody normally when the score is 5-4. Down on strikes he goes. And strikeout number 5. 1 gone here in the 8th inning. And Pagnazzi is the batter. Pagnazzi, one of the 3 rookies in the Cardinal lineup tonight. Lindemann, Pagnazzi, and the starting pitcher McGreen. Tomorrow night, Danny Cox will try to get the Cardinals even, and Bert Blyleven will be on the mound for Minnesota. Fouled away. Monday is an off day. Series goes to St. Louis on Tuesday, and on Tuesday it will be John Tudor, who is great at home against Les Straker, the Twins' number 3 starter.
I think you brought up a very interesting point yesterday when we were talking about sometimes the length. You see a base hit up the middle by Pagnazzi. The length of a playoff series to get you to the World Series dictates how you set up your pitchers, and Whitey Herzog would have liked to have Danny Cox pitch the first game. Again, thinking about the fact that the Twins have such a fantastic record here at the Metrodome. We talked about it, 56-25, another 2 playoff wins. Like to have Cox going in a situation where you start out here, keep you in the ball game. You don't have to go with a rookie like McGrane. Possibility never coming back here.
Lawless has struck out twice tonight. 0-1. So there's Whitey leaning on the wall and probably thinking about tomorrow night.
Well, 10-1 ball games will get you in that mood, but
Some mood.
you know, a lot of people, and maybe it's just a rationalization of losing by a big score, will always tell you it's better to get blown out than to win those heartbreakers or lose those heartbreakers 2-1 or 3-2. Impressive thing about Frank Viola's stats, the economy, the lack of walks. A lot of times the pitchers will tell you they lose their concentration when you get a big lead. That has not been the case tonight.
Pagnazzi can roam free at first, down by 9. Herbeck playing behind him. Oh, and 2 on Lawless.
Talked about how the Cardinals won their series. What about the way the Twins won their series? They beat the Tigers in 5 games, and you could have seen Blyleven or perhaps Viola in game 6 or 7 if it had gone that far, which would have messed up their rotation.
Lombardozzi and Gagne have a little communication problem, but still Lombo comes up with a catch, and there are 2 down. Even at home, it's so loud here, they didn't hear each other.
It's hard for us to really know whether you can hear each other talking, and you know they're trying to communicate. Tom Kelly talked about the fact that as you see Lombardozzi make the catch and Gagne trip, he said you can't even turn to somebody sometimes in the dugout and talk to him and hear him.
No wonder he's so quiet.
It's nothing to do with his personality.
Coleman is the batter. You know, one of the more amazing things I thought when watching the Twins celebration the other day, when they win the pennant, Kelly, he sat in the dugout and he let the players have their moment on the field. And here's a rookie manager, a guy who is fortunate to get a job, and they really made him wait. And the next thing you know, I mean, he wins a pennant, and he sits there and he's happy to let everybody else share the glory and enjoy the moment.
they'll all tell you to the man, when you talk about Tom Kelly, they said he's one of us. He's no different.
Ken Herbeck said he'll even cheat in cards along with all of us.
He's a native Minnesotan, even though he moved from here when he was very young and grew up in New Jersey. Still makes his home there. Gagne to Lombardozzi and to the bottom of the 8th. Minnesota 10, St. Louis 1 in game 1. Under the dome, where everybody is smiling, and where Steve Lake has come into catch now for St. Louis with the score 10-1. Kirby Puckett starts things off. Puckett has not joined the hit parade tonight. He's 0 for 4, and he's coming off a slow ALCS, so he's a guy ready to explode.
Well, I mean, for a .332 hitter with 28 home runs, he only walked 32 times, so you get the idea that he is not a very patient hitter.
Into right field for a base hit.
Not very patient, but very gifted.
Well, if you're not patient, you have to be gifted. Now Greg Gagne is the only one in the lineup that has not had a base hit tonight. Greg 0 for 5, but that's a happy 0 for 5 if there's such a thing as a happy 0 for 5.
Yeah, right.
Club's up 10-1. You'll take an 0 for any time.
Gaetti hits a fly ball to shallow center field. McGee having trouble and drops the ball, but he can still get a force and does. Smith is on the bag. Puckett had to wait. And so McGee will not get what would have been an error. Instead, it's your basic 8-6 force out.
Third time tonight that an outfielder has lost a ball. 2 by the Cardinals and once by the Twins. Kirby Puckett lost a ball earlier. As a matter of fact, that led to the only Cardinal run back in the 2nd inning.
Don Baylor. 1-0 the count.
You know, when you think about it, I guess the players are right that come in here, and the Twins having such a superior home record, and all of the players talk about the white ceiling. I mean, you would think that they would have it painted a different color. White on white belongs in shirts, not in baseball against a ceiling.
2-1 the count.
Oh, that's why Billy Martin, a man that's never been known to overreact, says they ought to spend $100 grand and paint the thing.
Well, he's right.
And George agreed with him.
Wallace to her and back to first, double play. 5-4-3 to get Baylor and take care of the Twins. On to the ninth, Minnesota leading 10-1. The Twin Cities are lit up in more ways than one. There it is on a skyscraper in downtown Minneapolis. A live shot. Win Twins. The rallying cry here as we go to the ninth inning. 10-1. And Ozzie Smith to lead things off.
Looks like how they have Gene Larkin at first and possibly in right field, Mark Davison.
Tom Kelly can give some other players some experience. There's Larkin, the Columbia University graduate.
They beat Yale today?
Yeah, and Keith Atherton is the new pitcher. Columbia beat Yale today?
No, I was saying, did they beat Yale? They had lost 35 in a row, and they were playing Yale today. We saw A. Bartlett Giamatti, and Gene Larkin went to Columbia.
Well, we'll get our crack staff now to answer that question.
See the numbers of Keith Atherton. Last year 10 saves, this year only 2. But again, as almost all the Twins on this lineup have done over the course of the season, they play a role. And when Juan Berenguer was hurt early in the year, talking right there, Gene Larkin, Atherton came in, set up Jeff Reardon. One of the reasons he had such a successful year.
Smith flies to Gladden, Larkin at first, and Mark Davidson is the new right fielder. Mark, a defensive specialist. Tommy Herr with one out and the base is empty. Herr is 0 for 3. Strike. Yale, we understand, won that game 27-13. So it's up to Larkin to uphold the colors of good old CU.
36 in a row, and they had broken the Northwestern University losing streak of 34 collegiate games in a row. They did that last year.
Herr flying to Gladden and left for the second out. And it'll be Lindemann. Viola went 8.
Congratulations, John, to his brother.
Yep,
yes, sir.
A message to his brother, married earlier today.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Sure, it's a mutual message. John saying congratulations, Frank.
Atherton trying to close it. Larkin has no room. 0-1. Meanwhile, Whitey Herzog, the last time he appeared in a World Series, he lost 11-0 in Game 7. Poor Whitey is now down a composite 21-1 in his last 2 World Series games.
It's like Taipei against the United States in the Little League World Series, the exact score.
Gaetti will end it on a nice play. The Twins win Game 1 of the '87 World Series.